Hello and welcome to UC Today. My name is David Dungay. Today I'm joined by Rahul Sawardekar from Tata Communications. Hi Rahul, how are you?
Hello, David. Nice meeting you.
So, Rahul, we're going to be talking about end to end, not just meeting rooms, but collaboration devices and endpoints as well today. A really, really important discussion, especially in the context of a lot of businesses are completely reimagining the way that their offices look, and the way they're going about their hybrid meetings, etc., etc. So, let's get into that conversation now. But before we do, maybe we could do a brief introduction. Do you want to give us just 30 seconds on yourself, and for those who might not be familiar with Tata Communications, what you do?
Thank you, David, and thank you for inviting me here to speak on this topic. It's a very interesting topic. And yes, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Rahul Sawardekar. I'm part of Tata Communications. I come from the global Rapid family of products within Tata Communications, which is the UC product group within Tata Communications. For those of you who don't know Tata Communication is one of the largest telecom providers across the globe. It is, you can think about it, 30% of the global internet traffic transmits to our network. You could think about 1 in 10 international call is typically handed over through our network. So we have extensive capabilities in this, which helps us to meet the customer's digital fabric requirements or connectivity fabric requirements. So this is the expertise that we bring to the field and to our customers.
Fantastic. So let's get into some questions then. I want to talk about the return to the office. We've seen this over the last few years. A lot of companies have made that move. But how is this trend or the return to office really shaping or reshaping expectations around meeting room technology and these collaboration spaces?
Yes, David. So you are absolutely right. I think meeting rooms have to be now evaluated at pre-COVID era and post-COVID era. I think that's like the line we can draw around how meeting rooms were evaluated. Whereas pre-COVID meeting rooms were never the center stage of productive. They were very important, but they were restricted to, let's say, senior leaderships, or there are not investments that were going through. But post-COVID, that completely flipped. Post-COVID, I think meeting rooms are the center of productivity conversations in most organizations. And if you have seen, most organizations are now working or have started to get their employees back to office. And this is a carrot and stick problem. Employees don't want to come to office because clearly the employees have invested decent amount of money in their own home office setups, which kind of are better than some of the meeting rooms that are there in the offices, right? So the employers or employees are having this debate that I am better productive, I have a more eye contact conversation, I have a more in-depth conversation with vendors and partners and even team members when I am at my home. But the productivity for the organization is measured and evaluated when he's in office. So this conversation is now coming right at the center stage. I think two things happened actually in the last 2 3 years. AI also took a center stage, and I think return to office also took center stage, right? So these are conflicting investment decisions for organizations, which organizations are balancing. But I clearly see more and more organizations slowly looking at how to sweat their current assets, upgrade them, and plan for the future, standardize and plan for the. We are having multiple conversations where this is the theme that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we could talk about some of those key challenges then. You talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID era, and I think that's quite a nice way to kind of segment that, how to look at that. But we've always, as an industry, been talking about these legacy meeting rooms today, and how organisations need to go and upgrade them to meet their kind of newer, more demanding kind of staff. But what are the key challenges for those organizations that are trying to modernize those rooms?
So I think if you look at this whole point of view, right, pre-COVID, or I think since these rooms were never center stage of this evaluation, most large organizations which are globally operating have kept meeting room decisions or infrastructure deployments local decision making objectives, right? They have and we see this, right? We have APAC deploying some things, we have India deploying something, but when you look at a whole organization, they are a combination of lot of these states. But as platforms are converging and more and more standardization is happening, now when customers go back to that drawing board to evaluate what's the next 5-year strategy or 10-year strategy, standardization becomes a very key important aspect of it, right? So as a result of which, a lot of conversations are happening about OEM capabilities, platform capabilities. How do you standardize? Are they open standard platforms? All these, and you can see customers even talking about standardizing how the look and feel of the meeting room is going to be there to that level, right? So they want an employee moving from Singapore to California to have a similar feeling or similar experience. He could walk in the team meeting room and join a meeting with exactly the same thing he's used to in Singapore. So those standardization is something that's going to key drive changes, right? Now that doesn't mean the organizations have to learn so many different platforms, and there are different techniques. There are people like us who help organizations kind of drive these standardization, share our learnings with them, and help achieve this goal, right? So this is what I think is going to be the most important thing for companies to evaluate. And as I just alluded a bit, I think there are too many changes in the market right now, too many uncertainties, too many work from return from work. Is AI more productive, or a face-to-face conversation more productive, right? The organization has to decide all this. So there are too many things happening, but I think these things will converge, and hybrid is here to stay, and meeting rooms face to face conversation is definitely going to be the center of really valuable conversations for the company.
Yeah, you mentioned there about well, standardization being one, and then these companies, they don't necessarily need to learn all the different platforms. Of people like yourselves can help with that. But in terms of the single vendor ecosystem, I mean, first of all, is it important to look beyond that? And if so, why is it important for businesses to look beyond the single vendor ecosystems when they're designing these collaboration environments?
So I think the single vendor system typically lock you in. They kind of keep you locked, and they don't have a little flexibility. I think the ability to have a freedom to choose and capabilities, there could be different vendor, and you invest in this for a long term, right? There could be certain capabilities at one end vendor is advancing, which the others are catching up. So there are multiple things. I think there's a systematic advantage on having this open systems multi-vendor approach, right? But at the end of the day, you have to be able to orchestrate at least all of them together, so that you are not running behind 10 vendors, or you're not you have a meeting room, a codec which is talking to a controller. You're not running behind two vendors and having this confusion. The orchestration level needs to be standardized, right? Organizations could invest in building these resources themselves, but I think there are a lot more problems that the organization have to solve, and leave these problems to somebody else who's probably doing this for some time, right? So I think that's where the differentiation will start coming in. There are going to be multiple OEMs that are going to come. There are going to be platforms which will converge. I think platforms will converge more. Like you will have a Microsoft, Cisco, Zoom kind of. There'll be a lot of options there, but OEMs will constantly keep these platforms on their toes and building newer capabilities, a 360 camera or a better mic or a larger display, or they will constantly keep you pushing that, and that is what is going to drive the end user experience, right? So it's very important to keep open in that sense, and as a result of which, there's a responsibility for people like us to help orchestrate, design, execute, and even monitor and manage this for our customers, right? Because you think about it, it sounds good, but when you have to deal with 10 vendors or 10 different, even for the smallest room, it's a headache, right? So this is where we leverage our relationships, our ability, our tools to even monitor, track all these things. That's what kind of makes it fluid. And and at the end of the day, if the meeting room doesn't work for 10 minutes, we all know what productivity losses that 30 minutes meeting would be, right? So it just sets the tone for the meeting. 10 minutes gone in a meeting room to start just spoils the 20 minutes, even though you have a 20-minute meeting, but it doesn't really have the same experience. So I think proactively looking at all these things is, I think, what's important for organizations, and lot more to happen in this space, and I think lot more will happen, and we hopefully will do something there.
I think you're right. There's lots more to come, but we are, as you mentioned, we are seeing a lot of interop between the big vendors. But again, managing multiple vendors is a headache, as you say. But with that in mind, though, how should businesses really adjust their approach to vendor selection then when it comes to ensuring that flexibility they need, but also that future proofing element because things are going to change. We know they're going to change. How should they approach that?
So I think, I think a lot of vendors are in the market who are improving. I think if you look at most of the platforms, they are certifying more and more vendors right now. Every week as we speak, right, more and more platforms or vendors are coming, endpoint devices. One thing that the customer needs to also appreciate is, I think the platform is going to play a pivotal role. So the certifications from platform and all those play a very important part. So I think vendor selections kind of tries gets a little narrowed down, because the platform you're investing behind, you should have the end OEM or the endpoint should typically converge to that, right? And beyond that, I think you have to look at your design elements of what you are driving within your meeting room. So that's the standardization that you will see. What are the objectives of the meeting room? What do you want? What is the size? How many? What kind of equipment that we want to drive? Once you standardize the layouts or the experience that you want to achieve, then your vendor selection kind of comes through, right? And you don't need to stick to one or two, right? Then you could have multiple options, and it could be a price discussion, it could be a preference discussion, or it could be a capability discussion that drives the final choice. And then overall, you have an overarching layer to have a visibility on this estate. Yes, you're going to, the experience is standardized for the user, but the delivery components might be different, right? So you got to have an overarching view on all these things. That is what will drive, and then you will see, I mean, not just tangible costs, that what's the cost of the equipment, but you would see the loss on productivity or the loss in setting up a meeting room. Can you go do a system check on your board meeting rooms every day morning, right? That means there's absolutely going to be flawless board meeting rooms. That's enormous cost savings for the customer. People don't realize it, but it is you would typically keep two people on standby to be ready for it. But if you have a systematic approaches to measure your boardroom meetings outputs, have a dialogue with your vendors that, okay, there's a consistent failure of these 10 things, fix it. That's how this will all come together, and effectively you'll see a much better ROI on the investment that you've made.
Yeah, I mean, and part of driving that ROI, we're seeing, is around consultancy as well, and I know that's a key differentiator for Tata. And maybe you could talk to the role of consultancy and bringing everything you just mentioned there together. What role does consultancy really play in helping organisations get to that utopia, that truly integrated experience?
Yes, I think consultancy is absolutely important here, because I think the landscape is evolving very rapidly. There are a lot of startups coming, there are established players coming in. I think you can't disregard the fact that the consultants or the people who are in this business are constantly looking out for what's best, right? Anything new they catch, right? And this is critical, interesting aspect that helps design the future, right? So I think as a consultant, it is very, the knowledge that they bring, the experience and the visibility, the nuances that they bring, that kind of helps. And obviously when you take that knowledge and you have a customer who gives you use cases, scenarios or specifications that he's looking for, that kind of becomes the bedrock of the design of what we want to do. That's a high level design. The consultants like us, we help them to get it to a low level, to a configuration level details via diagrams. So anybody who's troubleshooting all this is not, it's not a patchwork that has happened. He exactly knows how the wire laying has happened in the building. So all these steps kind of help you in the perfect execution of it's not, maybe not perfect, but on a good execution of all this. So you are able, and the consultant will guide you through all this process, execute it on behalf. And if there is some things that even he has to talk to OEMs or build specific features. You exactly know what roadmaps are going to be look like. You everything that I said can be done by some people in the organization, but I think you got to choose your own battles, and I think there are a lot more battles that organizations have to right now fight, and these are something that really can specialized guys can give better output. So I definitely see a consultant's role very important to this. This is going to set your productivity strategy for the next 5-10 years, right? And
Yeah.
that's the conversation that you're having right now. It's good that it's not 2022 or 2023. A lot of people have now started to realize it. They have experienced the problem of carrot or stick to get employees back. So they really are now leaning into the carrot side of things. The stick side of things makes it to the newspapers. So there's different things happening in the market right now.
Yeah. I mean, are you seeing geographic sort of differences, between different regions, and how they're approaching their or adapting their collaboration strategy? Are you seeing differences there, or is it broadly the same?
No, it's the main trends are similar, but there are nuances to it. Definitely, I think it is also a factor of culture of that area, right? For example, let's say the western side of things are a little more open to work from home or more a hybrid work culture, right? Whereas the Indian subcontinent, if you see, people have been more used to working from office, right? I mean, typically most organizations want people working in office. Freelancing and all these concepts have been now coming to India, or these concepts are they were obviously there, but now they're taking center stage and all, and people are adopting all this. So I think what technology organizations use is a function of what culture they are in, right? In Indian subcontinent, I think it's not the latest and the greatest. You're looking for very cost efficient solutions. It's not that the US guys or people in the West are not looking for cost, but they would probably choose something that is cutting edge versus an Indian org who would really want to go what is the best cost efficient way of doing this, right? So some of these parameters, and that is why when you look at the OEM side of things, you get the entire gamut of services or offerings. So you have extremely expensive OEMs or very high secure, very good brands, and then there are some value options available also, which are they have their own pros and cons, right? So this is the beauty of this ecosystem, right? You can really plug and play what you want to get the end effective output. Right? You make some sacrifices, you make some gains also, but each nuances are different, and but you have the ability to cater to every requirement, right? The capability, it's like the phone market. The phone market is there from the iPhone to a low end Android also, but does the functionality meet it? Yes, it does. In most cases you would have a superior camera experience, superior speaker experience, but they all will make a call.
You mentioned cost optimization there. I mean, being optimal with your cost is, of course, everyone's cost conscious right now. But I mean, how can enterprises really balance that? Because the flip side of that is obviously employee experience as well. So balancing those two things, cost optimization and employee experience, how can enterprises really balance and view that?
So I think one point, I think fundamental, I think in most conversations I see the cost, it is very easy to look at the tangible cost of an equipment, right? It is, I think there is a lot of probing that needs to happen to look at the intangible. And unfortunately, it's a very harder cost to evaluate, right? Productivity cost or loss of meeting or loss of more travel costs because the meeting rooms are not collaborative, the cultural aspects of it, these are very intangible. So I think there needs a little more effort, some sort of leadership or some sort of cultural drive that needs to come through, which will help you define what is the cost, not just the equipment cost, which comes in a very easily in an Excel format, but the real cost of it, right? Once you know that a little more, and when you have set up your strategic direction, right, you are an organization which embraces collaborations, and your resources are dispersed all across the globe, and you really want ideas to flow through together. that's a very good idea, but it has a cost to it. So you kind of get to that cost level. Then when you're optimizing all this execution, you have the I think the vendor market is so competitive that there is enough and varied options available, right? So a consultant or open standards, standardization, all these are steps into cost optimization, right? So if you have a standardized room experience, or you know exactly the vendors that meet this experience, you exactly know you're not going to waste time in selecting what to choose from. You exactly know your vendor. You have, and the vendor also knows that, okay, this is standard, so let me look at this in the best possible commercial output for the customer. So there are various steps that you take in the journey that will help you derive a optimum cost, right? It is and I think overall the cost for a meeting rooms have significantly come down, and more, for example, platforms are investing or developing capabilities that are helping easier installations. Earlier, when you had extremely high costs of installation, there are easier or smaller rooms can be self-installed, or there are much more simpler or lower skills that are needed to install some of the QR code based installation. All this is driving your cost down. So if you look at all these aspects, you can derive whatever your budget is, or you can derive a solution within that. And that's the beauty of this, where we are right now. And last 4 or 5 years have really pushed all OEMs to do this.
Rahul, we're coming towards the end of the conversation today, but before we go, I want to ask you about the future. What are you excited about? What innovation and trends are you getting excited about right now, in the context of this, evolution of the workplace environment?
So I think two things are really going to be critical. I think one is how AI is going to come into this meeting rooms, right? We have already started seeing digital assistants coming into your meeting rooms, right? I think there's a lot more that will happen. You would probably have at a point of time AI just imitating you in the conversations, or there would be a lot more on the AI front that you would see. And I think that the second aspect I am very excited to see is the immersive meeting rooms, right? I think we are restricted to audio and video, right? I think immersive meeting rooms will be something that will be exciting. They'll probably not fit all the 100 meetings that happen in the organization, but when you're having one-on-one conversations or important conversation, be it candidate interviews or things like that, so there are going to be those specialized meetings where immersives will start taking a role in it. It could be a creative collaboration conversations where creative people are talking and designing things. When your hands talk more than your words, those conversations are not captured well, right? So that's a trend that I'm really excited to see, and I see people, investing in it. It's not center stage, but this is like they're sowing seeds for this, and probably 3 4 years down the line, you would see that most organizations have at least a few immersive meeting rooms, right? And that's going to be a very interesting meeting room to go to.
It certainly will be. Rahul, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your insights. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, David. It was great to be here, and I look forward to our next conversation.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. See you next time.